All right. Let's good night. Good night. Good night, fathers. Good night, fathers.
Good night, Brother Ron.
Good evening.
All right, let's if you need us, if I see the two guys come on, let me put this in the chat for you guys again. So just so you can have the back screen if you want that. So, gentlemen, hey guys, who listen, last week we had a very fruitful conversation. It was it was interesting because we were talking about baby mamas and baby daddies. So today we have another conversation that we're going to be having, and it's about Papa was a Rolling Stone. And that could mean so many things for so many of us. In many instances, it could definitely mean, it could talk to us about, you know, the relationship of our own fathers and the family. It can talk to us about, you know, at some point why fathers were missing from the family. And also we're going to kind of, maybe we'll get into what happens when that happens. What, you know, what becomes the outcome, the result of the family based on that happening. You know, so let's see where we at tonight. Again, gentlemen, if you can go ahead and share this out, go up to the top. You can share it out to people on your social media if you have it, so we can get them on there. Again, I want to also, anybody who's coming on, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and share our page so you can be able to know when we're going to have content discussing fatherhood. So as we do that, let's go around. Let's hear from the fathers tonight who's in the house. We do our traditional introduction, name, number of children, and if you got something special you want to say tonight, we welcome it. Go ahead, fathers.
Well, since everybody gonna lead slow with it, I'm gonna jump on. It's good to see you guys again. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on here, but my name is Brother Johnny Gaspard. I have two beautiful children, ages 23 and soon to be 20. And they still in my pocket, unfortunately. But you know, God is good. He gonna provide. So with that being said, I look forward to this interesting topic this evening and being here with y'all again.
Okay, I'll jump in. My name is Larry Jordan, father of two, grandfather of one. Kids are 26 and 33. They still in my pocket too. They don't seem to ever want to leave, you know, but you know, there's good and bad in all the situations. But of course, glad to see you guys again. Glad to be here. Hopefully I'll be able to contribute something from the old school way.
I'll go ahead. My name is Gene Robert, father of two, 18 and 26. And yeah, just glad that everyone's back this week. Welcome back, Lightborn. Welcome back, Mr. Gaspar. You were missed, but welcome back.
Hey, good evening. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father of seven. Let me say this first in the right chronological order. I'm a husband and a father of seven. Let me say that because I'm like leaving out the most important piece. And my wife have three, I have four, and that's pretty much it for now. You'll find out the rest during the conversation.
All right, the guys down in the goulash who don't have no video, but you're here. Come on up, come on in.
I'm Justin. I have the father of four.
I have a 10-year-old boy, a 7-year-old girl, a soon-to-be 2-year-old girl, and a 3-month-old.
Amen.
All right, you're now Donald, Rohan.
All right. Hi, fathers. My name is Rohan Wadak. I have two daughters, 14 and 16. I must say, it's always a pleasure to be amongst these gentlemen who are empowering fathers and families. And it's, as usual, it's great for me to be here to share the knowledge.
All right, you're now Donald. Do you guys want to, or you just want to stay
Yeah,
listening?
I'm here.
Oh, you're now. There you go.
I don't know, my phone is keep acting up. So I'm a father with 5 kids and married with my wife. I'm so proud to be in the fatherhood, and I'm so happy to. And I'm grateful too, because I learned a lot of things from fatherhood. So that's why my family is so happy to be in there too.
But yeah, your family had, well, that's a, it's funny you say that, because yesterday I was on a call and the question was, someone was saying that what makes them a father, what makes them a man is themselves. And I pushed back very heavily on that, because I wanted them to know that, hey, one of the big parts of this is that it's not what you define as a father, but is what you display to the people who will, receive your fatherhood. I think that, because this joke, we're going to talk about it tonight in the whole example of Papa was a Rolling Stone. He was a father, but, what was that definition of father? So, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because that's an important distinction that we sometimes want to be able to make. All right. Anybody else before we go ahead on to get into the topic?
Donald Jones, father of 2, divorcing father of 2. My daughter is 12 going on 13, and my son is 11.
Okay. Welcome. All right. So let's look at this. I put out, you can look at I put out a very interesting photo when I send out the request to everybody for tonight's show. So I put a very interesting picture there. And I don't know if any of you guys can see it, and it has a father walking out of a door. And as he walks out the door, mom says, "I don't need a man." The daughter says, "I don't want a man." And the youngest little baby boy say, "I don't want to be a man." So, and that's that has some powerful indications, some powerful points for us that we should really evaluate. So let's just jump into it, guys. What's your feelings? What's your pleasure about this Rolling Stone, and what is a Rolling Stone? How do we define Papa being a Rolling Stone?
Well, from what I've, in my experience as a as an attorney and handling various family law cases, oftentimes, and just in my experience in my neighborhood and growing up, there was men who had children with many different women and were never at home. They were always gone wherever that being gone meant. They would let you know that's their kids, though. They just weren't ever present for their kids in certain ways that we want to believe that a father should be present. Many times they may contribute a few dollars to the table, but they weren't physically present there for their children And if they were present, it was for a very short time. And then sadly, sometimes they were present with children in many different homes, so they could never be in one. A lot of times we think, when we think of this papa, we think he's an unmarried man, but sometimes he may be married, living that type of life. So sadly, it doesn't, the phrase Papa was a Rolling Stone is definitely not a positive one. And no man should ever want to have that affiliated or designated with his name. But sadly, you know, it is in many of our neighborhoods and some of our upbringing, something that's very regular, sadly, and common in our community. So that's what I think it is, Ron. And maybe I'm getting it wrong. I don't know, but that's been my experience.
Again, I think this is one of our big points. There can't be a getting it wrong.
I got you.
I think that's where our problem comes, the conflict we have sometimes with our counterparts is we trying to work this thing out. And so you can't be getting something wrong if you're trying to work it out. If I don't know what, you know, when you walk to a place and you're trying to develop and trying to figure out, yeah, you may have a blueprint, but that don't mean I had a blueprint. So definitely that.
I'll give you a perspective. What I think that Papa was a Rolling Stone was from going way back, especially in small towns. This used to happen a lot. I know when I was growing up, you know, you grow up with certain people that on your mother's side and certain people that on your father's side. And it was on my father's side that I found out that my grandfather, whom I never met, had a whole nother family on the other side of town. And so when I was actually out of college, before I met that side of my father's family, but it was very accepting back then in terms of like, that's just the way people did things. There are many people that were culturally brought up that did not know their fathers, and their mothers never told them who their father ever was. And so, but it was kind of accepted, and that's kind of what went on. And people met relatives years later. I know I did, whom I've grown, you know, very accustomed to being around, and I loved them a lot. But I never met them until I was a grown man. So, but that's because in this case, my grandfather was a Rolling Stone.
I hear that.
And let me just ask this question, Larry. Do you have any evidence of the reason why your grandfather was that Rolling Stone? I always, you know, I when I'm doing my therapy and we're looking at our development, our relationships, we try to really look transgenerationally and try to look back 3 and 4 generations to see what happened. Because there are some things that happen that we're not privy to. They're what we call the family secrets. And they don't tell us what it is. That the reason why you don't know your daddy, because the reason why you don't know your daddy because your granddaddy and grandma sent your mama away immediately after she was pregnant and said, you know, I heard these kind of secrets before. And so I'm always curious, you know, maybe you know some of those stories. You have some of those back in 1954 stories.
Well, you know, in the case of like my grandfather, my dad really did not know him, but we did find out later. And you know, like I said, this was in Louisville, Georgia, very, very small town, and you know, when people stayed out in the woods, they would just kind of visit each other, and because the population was small, you might find one gentleman that might be particularly attractive that just kind of got around, and all the ladies liked him, and they were far enough apart that, things just happen. So I think in this particular case, from my understanding, that was kind of a gentleman. He was a handsome gentleman, and he loved to get around.
And he would visit a lot of people, huh?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lightbird. I see you biting at the, you chopping at the bit, Lightbird. Go ahead.
He writing down notes. Lightburn writing down the notes. Don't worry.
See that?
He like a good lawyer. He write down notes.
He's scholarly with this. Go ahead.
No, Ron kind of interrupt my whole thought process when he asked that question, because it made me made me think of another question, is of how important is it for me to factor in my father's history when he didn't factor in my reality? And so I am betwixt when it comes to that. I don't even think I would even be up for being re-traumatized by his absence. But I'm gonna digress from that point and get back to my original point or my original thought process, Ron, of thinking, how do you get a #1 hit song in America where the songwriters were African-American, that's #1, and African-American is one of the smallest population at that particular time, even smaller, right, in the United States, but they become a #1 album. It's because of the relatability, which tells me that Papa being a Rolling Stone was not just a Black thing or an African-American thing, but it was also an American thing. So being that as it may, Papa being a Rolling Stone, there's so many factors about that, because that not only being a #1 song, but that may have been the #1 hurt that the country was experiencing at that particular time and right now as we speak. I see consequences of it. My wife's brother just died a few weeks ago, and he struggled with that. He's 81 years old, and he still struggled with that, trying to establish a relationship with his father that he never did. So he established what you call a vicarious relationship. What does that mean? He became the man to his father that his father never was to him as a boy. And so he cherished knowing all of his siblings, and I mean they was widespread, scattered, generational, because my wife is probably every bit of nearly 30 years younger than her brother. You understand? So he had generations of children. And so I can see how a #1 hit song can be birthed out of the country's #1 hurt. And I think we cannot isolate it to just being a Black thing. I'm like, no, single father Papa being a Rolling Stone was an American thing, given the freedoms and the options that we have. And so you can almost trace it where at the post-civil rights era, where there's been a gulf, almost the father single parenting gulf, after what they call it, the Civil Rights Bill was signed in 1968. And so with that, or Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. I got my history a little betwixt right now, but forgive me on that part. But after post-civil rights and that civil rights particular bill, then there was a gulf in single parenting, because the options and the safety that came along with those options gave people, and particularly men, because at that particular time, and even at this particular time, we still had a privilege being male. Even if you're a Black male, you still have more privilege than the Black woman. And so as of that, we had what you call circumstantial privileges that we can exploit without any consequences. Child support was not really enforced until you got, well, at least in Florida, until you got Janet Reno at the helm, and she started pushing more so for more stringent consequences. But other than that, guys was, man, leaving left and right, leaving kids, and Big Mom had to go back, and then the mother had to fall back on Big Mother, and then you had grandparents raising 2 to 3 generations of children in the households and different things like that. And again, it was not a Black thing. And how I know it was not a Black thing, and I'm going to plug this movie, because I think after that Will Smith, Chris Rock's slap thing, I think this was one of the biggest Academy Awards, that highlighted two movies that showed two different types of fathers from two totally different dynamics, one being King Richard, the other one being The Tenenbaum, which are two great movies. I see why they came up for Academy Awards. So because of that, you find so many different dynamics, and this Papa was a Rolling Stone thing, and we talk about #1 hit song, but again, we talk about the #1 hit that families took in American circumstances.
And to piggyback on what Lightburn said, we also, right after that time frame of the civil rights and the assassination, we then followed that up with the Vietnam War, which was one of the biggest wars that took the lives of so many African-American men and men in general. That's why, as you said, it wasn't just a African-American thing, but it was a American thing. And I'll even go so far to say, Lightburn, that it's a worldwide thing. I'll tell you, in the Caribbean community, sadly, having children and numerous children outside of your relationship, your marriage or whatever is so accepted to some degree. It's very, one would could relate it to the African culture of having multiple wives and multiple children. So I think that also plays a role in part of who we are, because obviously culturally and historically as Black people from Africa, that's not considered a negative thing. A man having multiple wives and multiple children in different tribes. Generally, they're all together working as a family and they all know each other. Where in America, that ain't necessarily the case. But as far as historically and culturally as a group of people, we have always had, that mindset of having several. And then when you talk about what happened with the era of slavery and the civil rights era and Jim Crow and the destruction of the Black family and the killing of the Black male especially, it unfortunately led many women to be by themselves, raising children by themselves and subject to those smooth-looking, handsome-looking men from Louisville, Georgia, in those small towns, because there wasn't a whole lot of options. So, because a lot of them either got hung, killed, or went off to war in some way, and all those things played a role in why Papa, who was left behind, was rolling all over the place. So, I don't, like I said, I 100% agree with you that it's not just a Black thing, it's an American thing, and it's actually a worldwide thing, because you go to various places in this country, in this world, and they'll tell you the same thing there as it is here in America. So great point there about the song being a #1 hit and dealing with America's #1 hurt at the time. So
I'll also take it a step to say economically too. You had it where a lot of these fathers who did have multiple families in different locations was because if you look at the migration of work that they may have done, you would see that some parts of the year they're one location, another part of the year they're in a different location. So to take up housing in two separate locations was not hard for them because one, they had a reason to be there, and leaving and coming was easy for them, and understanding to the counterparts, their girlfriends, their wives, because in some instances you'll find that they married both women or those multiple women. A few of the women who were married to them, they actually held up households where, your dad's gone, it's because he's traveling for work, we'll see him in a few months. And that was a normity and gave them that out in order to establish different households. So
good point.
How I hear you. But, as a sex educator, one of the first things to say that this is more of a sex thing than anything else. I know that is about individuals, but you wouldn't have any of this if they wasn't having sex and took precautions. So we're in the bigger picture, because then later we see that maybe in the early 50s and 40s and 20s they didn't have the type of contraception to protect from that. But as you get into the 90s, 80s and 90s, when you had HIV and AIDS on rampant and people were still doing this, it became a factor of you didn't care. You cared about the sex you was going to have, and sex, unless it's in the rape, is consensual by two people. So there are some factors in this idea. I think, sometimes I just think about all the calls, all the calls that I'm on day in and day out, and listen to the fathers and listen to the stories. And I think about the story of a brother who discussed, it's sometimes easy for us to estimate what it is to stand up and try to be a dad when you maybe not want to or not ready to. I think it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it. And I think that's also where we get a lot of the dysfunction in our children, is when people are trying to do something that they may not want to do. Okay. And so that's a big thing. Like this idea that I didn't want to, but I got to stand up, or the dad had the shotgun. So we got married and those things and what have you.
I think, from the standpoint that we all were taking it from, if you're looking now versus back then, when you talk about Papa's Rolling Stone, they don't travel very far. They travel, to the next apartment. It's not very,
Come on now, G. It might be the next county at least. They will have one in Broward, one in Dade. In Atlanta, they got DeKalb, they got Cobb, they got, they right there, that little, what they call it, 285 or something, that little circle they drive around in the ATL. You got one in each county. I don't know about the next apartment, man.
I'm telling you, look, some people are lazy to drive, man. They go down knocking on every door, trying to figure out who's gonna let them in next. So it's you'll be surprised. And so I think with
which
that in mind,
Ron's point, what you just said,
it goes to Ron's point, because times have changed and ideals have changed. Therefore, the finding of the women, and here's the crux of it. You have a guy who approaches a woman who knows that they're with someone else, but the woman says yes anyway. Yeah. And now you have that, okay, well, I'm gonna be over here with you, and then you'll be my side chick, and I got to go back home to my main chick. And so that's how it starts to develop with that Papa Was a Rolling Stone, because eventually these two go at each other, and because someone takes them back, you've given them that out to do it again. Because if he's going to do it to you, he's going to do it to somebody else, and it's going to continue to a vicious cycle.
But bringing this thing up. I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Bringing this thing up just to current day. Like I mentioned earlier, this whole new thing, and it's going to happen, that they're going to drop a Roe versus Wade. And it's going to take on a whole new meaning of Papa Was a Rolling Stone, because now you're going to see, because all of those ladies that chose to get abortions, if now they're illegal and these kids are being born, you're going to see many things. Like they say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. You're going to see that cycle come right back around again. And I can foresee that with the change in the law, because there are a lot of women that choose, the abortion route. And if they are forced by law to have these kids, something's going to have to give.
Well, Lawrence, to add to that, there are many statistics show by 2040, some cultures will become the majority. There are many, actually, how could I put this? There are many there are many folks of different races who are not reproducing, or at least not reproducing fast enough. So this Roe versus Wade may have an undertone where many folks are using these abortion clinics as a means to get rid of a child, an unwanted child, or at least I want to get a career before I decide to have a child. Many folks are having children later in life. There's much more to it than Roe versus Wade. There are certain cultural facts that are involved here. But to go back to the part where, let's say 20 years ago or 40 years ago, most females, probably less educated, would were told by maybe their parents or parents, go find a guy, go find a guy. You know, there was one male, he's doing better, or he's doing well in the community, and she went to school and there wasn't much opportunity, in my opinion. And she meets a guy and he looks like he's doing well. And the first thing they want to do is have a child. Where maybe today, maybe 50 years later, she has her car, she has her apartment, she has her education, and a child is not used as a means of to get a better life. So there are many factors that have changed over the years, and some for good and some for bad. And I must say, people are having sex, and that is why these clinics are full. They are not having babies, they are having sex, and obviously dispensing the child. Food for thought.
Dispensing, that sounds so garbage canny. That word could have been so different, but I get it though. I get it. I get like I said, that word sounds kind of rough. Rod, you on mute. We can't hear you.
Well, the reason I use dispensing.
You're still muted, Matt, Ron. Go ahead, Rohan.
The reason I use dispensing, in reality, you are altering your body. You may get rid of a child, but during this process, you may change your mind 10 years later and decide to have a child, and you may not be able to have a child. So some of these decisions that are made at this point can have a lasting effect. And to be honest, a child is an honor to have a child. Mind you, there are different circumstances, but to just go to a clinic and just call today, it's a tough decision to make.
Gotcha. And we'll get it. We can go ahead, Lightburn, go ahead.
No, I think, since you brought up the Roe versus Wade.
I knew that.
Personally, I think the whole situation is sexist. And I'm talking about on the spiritual front, it's sexist. On the sociological front, it's sexist. On the economic front, it's sexist. And the thing about it is that whole conversation and that whole fight falls at the foot of the woman when the man really supposed to be fighting for the woman. So the man gets a pass in all this, but the sad part about it is men that's passing the legislation and driving it.
I agree.
And I'm talking on every level, sociologically, spiritually, and everything. So I'm like, hold on now. I know personally as a man, and I can only speak for me, since this is National Masturbation Day, coincidentally.
What?
It is. It's actually National Masturbation Day. Coincidentally.
Lightboard's dropping the education.
He is absolutely right.
Told me that.
It is National Masturbation Day. So let me say this, and this is why masturbation can get a national day. Let's explain why. Because every day, and particularly men first, men and mankind, we struggle every day getting up. If you want to know the difference between the struggle between sin and salvation, that struggle is the advocate versus the addict, right? And everybody know the ultimate high is euphoric. And so, which means the ultimate high and the ultimate addiction worldwide is an orgasm. We all know that. Hands down, I know that factual. And so if that is true, on National Masturbation Day, you understand? Then when you have men that's addicted to sex, which means they are addicted to women for all the wrong reasons. You understand? And whatever consequences come by way of that addiction, you understand? Then we are put in that collusion where we end up still, and this is the sad, penalizing the woman more than the man. Roe versus Wade. Well, and so I think it's very sexist in nature. I don't like it. I am like, listen, man, if we're gonna have this conversation, you never see the man, I've yet to hear the man's responsibility or the man's stance in that particular conversation.
What do you mean responsibility? Like
right. Explain.
Which means if it takes two to have a child, then why is the Roe versus Wade conversation one-sided?
Well, but I think you're missing that there are women who are actually for the Roe versus Wade. They're actually for.
No, it's not that I'm missing it. I'm saying that who's getting persecuted the most are women, not men.
But here's the thing, just to throw a caveat in there. I think with this, right, with the Roe versus Wade, we're looking at it at one side. Yes, it's the woman's decision, but now let's talk about safe sex, protected sex. Because now I'm putting more on you in the earnest to do a lot more in the prevention of you getting pregnant.
But you're putting it on the woman.
No, I'm putting it on both people.
No,
It-
but the
it's-
person who's getting the penalty by deciding to take this law away is the woman.
No,
At the end of the
but
day, at the
listen,
end-
listen,
at the
listen,
end of
listen,
the
though.
day, her choice. I'm sorry to interrupt you, though, Gene.
No,
At
go
the
ahead.
end
Go
of the
ahead.
day, it's her choice, and you are telling her that her
No,
choice is
right.
against
I
her
get
choice.
that. I get that. But here's the thing. Why is it that you kind of negate sexual responsibility and protecting yourself by saying, you know what, if she gets pregnant, then it's her choice to give up the kid? No, let's talk about the actual responsibility of both parties to protect yourself in this situation. Now, let's just say Roe versus Wade come about and they go that route where now it's illegal to have an abortion. Well, yes, if the woman, now it is more on the woman to force the man to do what they have to do.
But it ain't on the man to do nothing though. He can still nationally
Yeah,
masturbate all day.
No, but
Yeah,
then
but he
tell-
can't.
no,
But you can't
here's
have
the thing. Then say no.
outside of rape. Outside of rape, you can't have sex with a woman unless she consents. So
I'm not
listen,
disagreeing.
if you consent to me to go in you raw, if you consent for that, you also know, just like I know, you're not. Listen, don't play. Listen, this has become very, very patient, very, very texting to me that we begin to play this game where, you want equality. If we're gonna have equality, you gotta act equal, like we tell our children. You can't say I want to be responsible and I want this and that, but I don't want to hold accountability for it. We both hold accountability. It's more accountability for them because it's their body. But they don't even hold the power of that, because we're talking about the patriarchy that runs the society.
Correct. And that's where we are. That's exactly what I'm saying with you, Ryan. I'm not disagreeing with you that both individuals should have responsibility in making that decision, because they know outside of rape, we both agree to do it wrong. So I get that. All I'm simply saying is, at the end of the day, if you are, and I think this was Lightborn's point, put the people who is going to be affected the most in the position to make the decision, not be led by men with balls who don't have this baby to carry for 9 months and then 18 years of the responsibility of potentially raising this child, but put it in the hands of the women who potentially have that consequence, more so to them than they are to the men. And again, I'm not saying that the men don't ultimately have some responsibility and potential issues with it, because obviously we know there is that aspect of having to be on child support. If this woman does have this child and you have a responsibility to take care of it, but from the perspective of being able to make the choice, I think the decision to make it illegal, we know is not going to stop it from happening. As I read somebody said, it's just going to make it more difficult to have safe healthcare, because at the end of the day, people are still going to choose to do what they want to do regarding keeping that child or not. And unfortunately, that's going to be a bad thing. And we take that all back to what Larry said, was that unfortunately now, because some people are unwilling to risk their freedom or whatever may come from an illegal abortion, they will have children that they may not have wanted, which then takes you back into a situation with that Rolling Stone situation growing, and more men being placed on child support and dealing with more drama as a result of having these children that are unwanted. So I think the decision, and we, if that is ultimately what happens, because they're, Justice John Roberts quickly said that that leaked document isn't necessarily the decision everybody's going to make. He quickly said that. I just think that with what we're talking about, the Papa is a Rolling Stone situation could become a greater issue if that is overturned ultimately in this country. But that's just,
Well, let me ask this question.
I have to add real quick, gentlemen, real quick. I'm the guy who talk numbers. Let's do numbers here. We know that our generation is getting older every day. Over 10,000 people turn 60 every day in the United States and maybe the world. As we make these decisions, who is going to be the next lawyer? Who's going to be the next janitor? We are having a scenario right now where we don't have anyone to take care of us. we are having no one to fill these jobs. We are not, we were designed to reproduce, reprocreate, if that's the right word. And as we made these changes, which suits our moral compass, at some point I deal with the elderly and I'll say, if you had the opportunity to have children over again, they'll say to me, yes. Every time I ask a question, I get an answer. Yes, I would have done things different. There are many folks today who are going after the dollar, the mighty dollar, and doing so, they will, well, how could I put this? They will put things aside to make that money. What their role, in my opinion, as a father or mother, and it also, keep in mind, it's very expensive to raise a child. You mentioned, Johnny mentioned child support. We can talk about daycare. We can talk about time. And as this society today becomes the younger, well, the generation that are able to give birth, their priorities and morals have changed. Children is not in their foresight as we speak, and it may not be in their foresight down the road. But there is going to be a bigger problem if we continue to dispense, and I'll use the word, if we continue to dispense our children as if what would this a word, as if it's just nothing. It affects your body, it affects the family, and there are consequences for these actions.
So you're saying this is to help us grow the population again?
I'm putting a thought that, one, you decide to do what you want to do with your body. Keep in mind that decision comes with consequences. Two,
without a doubt.
Yeah. Two. We need to reproduce at some point. We know that many people are freezing their eggs right now, which is very, very expensive to do. We know that some sectors of the population reproduce very quickly, and we know some sections, they are so I always say this to everyone, and there is, how could I put this? If you're responsible, there is consequences for being responsible. If you're irresponsible, there's greater consequences for being irresponsible. Nobody really wins. But at some point, we got to do what I believe rightfully we are designed to do. But that's my opinion. I just want to put it out there.
You know what? Listen to what you said, Rohan, and all you guys. Me personally, I think if we're going to breed children or bred children or whatever you want to call it, then we're going to be breeding for success reasons and not slave reasons. You understand? We're not in the business of breeding slaves. You understand? So we can have people to work for you. That ain't no reason for breeding. But if you're going to breed and you're going to have a child for success reasons, so they can carry on your success. And success starts at conception, not at perception. And so we talking about all these rules that we really don't adhere to. The first person to break the rule in the family is the father anyway. So I don't even understand how we're going to apply this rule down if the rule is not even accepted and kept at the top. And this is what we fail to talk about. And so until we take accountable for who we are as men, and I can talk as men, until the statistics is in the favor of what we are and what we're talking about. And the statistics doesn't favor our circumstances right now. All of us who are doing right in this situation and right in our families are still in the minority. And so why should a woman who is in the minority of being done right, make a majority of the system to have children by a man who's gonna be a Rolling Stone? What kind of sick thought is that? And then we got to talk about the trauma, and we just totally act like abortion is just a normal thing, like paying a cable bill or something. And we act like it's not a traumatic situation. We don't even comprehend what it is, the trauma that woman go to murder her child. I have been the recipient of abortions. I have to fight for them because guess what? I was on the side of that. You understand? So for me to act like I don't have any empathy and to just disregard the trauma and the crisis that woman had to go through just to better or satisfy my economic situation is a fallacy. I can't sit by even allow that. And so I put myself on my embarrassment on the front line for their empowerment. Just because I got away with it doesn't give me give me the right to keep it quiet.
Man, you screaming at us, bro.
But I understand what Lightborn is saying. I understand what he's saying. But you got to understand that there are some people out there, right? When we talk about abortion, they use it as a form of birth control.
True.
And we can't ignore that fact. There are special circumstances and everything. Don't get me wrong. So when we talk, we can try to talk in generals, but like Rohan points out, like Lightborn points out, there are statistical facts that follow everything. And so what you have to weed out, and what we have to weed out, are the ones who are using it as a form of birth control. And those are the ones who this will truly hurt. I'll be honest with you. Those are the ones that's going to truly hurt. There are women out there that are put in a situation that they cannot have this kid, or there's an inability because of the trauma they had in conceptualizing the kid in conception, because of the fact that they were raped or anything like that.
Arrested or whatever. Yeah.
You have to take that into consideration, and sometimes, and I've heard this, some women who give birth who were raped, they look at the child and they can't even deal with that child. Although because of religious belief, they carry through with the conception and had the child, and they're trying to raise this child, but the child's a constant reminder of the trauma that they suffered. So I get it, and I understand that wholeheartedly. But there are some women out there who make the decision solely for selfish reasons. It's not on the basis of anything else but a selfish reasons. And I don't know the number that is, but I also know that that's a fact.
I would say I have to respectfully disagree about the selfish reason part, and here's why. Because when you get more guys saying it ain't mine, then what kind of mindset would that put you in? You be the woman, put yourself in that woman's shoes. So now here I am impregnated with a child that I know me and you laid down and have, and you have the flexibility and the option to say it's not mine, and there's nothing to hold you to that until that child gets here. Think about the crisis and the trauma that goes along with that for them 9 months of trying to figure out, because we saying, oh, the woman should have this responsibility. I'm like, truthfully, as a man, you don't have no responsibility really until that child get there, and then you still don't have no responsibility until they get you to court. You can dodge that.
But what about the guys who say, but what about the guys who say it is mine, and the woman says, I'm not.
Those
Excellent.
those right there.
And the man don't got no trauma for that.
And I love
the
what
guy
you said. But statistics ain't built on those guys. Again,
Gotcha.
we are those guys, and we are in the minority. And at the end of the
Listen. We have to stop that. We got to stop that, because that's the same thing as saying the statistics not built on domestic violence. What happened with men? We can't say statistics. That's the same thing saying statistics are only HIV only in the Black community. These statistics go to whoever the person who wants to make the decision what the statistics is. There's many men out here who go through the same trauma, the same disheartening when a woman makes a decision that she doesn't want to have a child after they agreed. So the idea that I look at this as a very neutral thing when it comes to both people, because many times when this happens, it's not some dude who don't want to have a child who normally gets an abortion done on them. And I want you to understand that is traumatic in many instances. It changes their whole dynamic on how they even sometimes interact in reference to the rest of the relationships, so on. Just like the same trauma women go through when they got to have an abortion. So I just want us to be fair with human beings. Women, yes, they get a raw deal, but that doesn't mean that men in many instances who are involved in these sexual relationships don't get the same raw deal.
I got you.
Maybe not at the higher number and percentage that we show, but again, men have zero control over what's going to happen. You know who got control? White supremacy, white and superiority has control with the idea of Roe versus Wade gonna force you to have an abortion, but the average everyday dude has zero control. Even a married man has zero control if his wife gonna have or not have a child, because it's completely her decision because of her body.
Y'all know that, right? Because even if we're married and and I'm gonna let you go, like, boy, I apologize, but even if you're married and your wife decides that she wants to have an abortion, she doesn't have to tell you. Right. And her doctor legally cannot share with you her decision to do that. She could literally have that abortion and you would have no idea that she had an abortion of that child, because she doesn't legally have any right to tell you, and the doctor can't share her with HIPAA, her medical situation with you unless she authorizes it. And that's the as Lightbird and Renard mentioned, the statistics there are very minimal, but there's still statistics that impact men that are doing the right thing. And we may, as a whole, want to say that this is wrong, and I agree, but when it's impacting you individually, you don't see the whole thing. You just see the impact that it may have on you in that moment. So that law and that ability to allow the woman in that scenario when she's married to make that decision, I think is wrong. I get why they do it, because sometimes the lady might be having an affair. Right. And the last thing she wanted to do is her husband to find out she ain't pregnant with some other dude, baby. Especially if he wasn't able to he been shooting blanks his whole life. Right. Then the next thing you know, she prays, she like, hey, mom, that can't be mine. Who that belongs to? Then the next thing you know, she about to get shot or something like that. He looking to cut her up, whatever extra stuff that comes with that. So I get that. But at the same, in the scenario with, again, the small statistics, when it is that husband's child, but she has said, she has made a determination because she's a professional woman. She's in her, whatever the peak of her career, and having a child at this time wouldn't work for her. And even though he's been wanting this and she makes that decision, he would never know about, that's the dude I'm trying to protect with such a decision, because he ain't a Rolling Stone. He's a papa that wants to be there. And I think that's where we sometimes forget that there are those small portion when we're making this broad general stroke about what's best, because the woman chooses that. But I bring the same. Oh,
I quickly like to add, many people are having relationships today based off economics. And the reason I add that to the scenario here, there are folks who have a male or maybe a female in their lives just because of economics. And we have these situations that arise. And when these situations arise, the intent of the person in your life now have changed with addition of someone else. We know today, we can go to some of these mills, you get, it's a pill. You take a pill and it's a done deal. And we've created a scenario where it's become too easy. It's become too easy to just take a pill and call it a day based off one sexual act. And again, these decisions that are being made have big effects on the economy overall and the future of the family.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but you got to understand it's very easy. And I mean very easy. Easier than to take that pill to have for guys to blow women up every day and not take care of their children. And so when we factor in what's the easiest thing, to take that pill and kill that child versus these irresponsible dudes, and I'm talking about all across walks of life, all across walks of colors and different things like that, and then we can use things like, oh, I was drunk and stuff like that. I mean, you see it all every day. And so I can't sit here and and I mean, we're some great guys and we're doing pretty good, but until our good become a majority, you understand? I understand that woman's psychological makeup of have to deal with about 3 or 5 different scenarios versus your one of, well, should she have the child or should she not have the child? She got to think about, okay, I got to think short-term and long-term. Is this guy going to be there? Am I going to be raising this child by myself? Those are different factors that you have to factor in that woman's decision-making of that child. Do I even like this fatso that I'm married to right now? You understand? And it takes time to just be with each other. So imagine, okay, maybe I don't see myself with you 10 years from now. So that's the real reason I don't want this child. But so it may be some underlying things that we may not be able to discuss, but to bring a child into that just to keep her attached to you. You understand? So it's a lot of different things like that we not factoring in that we need to factor in.
Hello? We need to go backwards. We got to go backwards. We have to go
ask a question?
Oh, go ahead, Doom.
I'm sorry. I've been listening. I came in kind of late, and I know it's been a lot of back and forth, but my question is, I hear what everybody's saying, but why has the responsibility of who this woman chooses to be with? I know everybody got to use birth control. I know, everybody has a responsibility as far as the act of the sex goes, but the responsibility of knowing who you chose to lay down with, if you know he a no good nigga, if you know that he's the type of dude that don't want to commit, if you know the type of guy that you getting ready to deal with, how are you as a woman absolved of that choice of that guy? And now you know, it's not that I have no empathy, but you know, the traumatic experience, but you knew the kind of guy you were getting with. You knew this guy didn't want to stay with you, but you still chose to lay down with him. Why is she completely absolved of that choice?
Dr. Doom, I'm going to respond to that real quick. I'm going to respond to that. You remember, if you heard me said before, we are like animals. You have plants and you have animals. That's how I look at it. And I say some folks are attracted to certain dudes. I've met females who told me I'm too skinny. Yeah. I've met females who told me she's attracted to a dude. He has 10 baby mamas and that's the dude she loves. So to answer that question, remember, don't leave out the part where someone is attracted to someone. Just keep
but listen. You that don't fly for me, dog.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
All right,
because again, the man asked a very simple question. How are you exonerated from any responsibility in this child being here when you knew the person that you got into a relationship with? Only people who don't know that are people who are intellectually disabled or maybe raped, who don't know the person that they're getting involved in these kind of relationships with. You cannot, you tell me that unless you just go and just lay down with any man, just like a man lay down with any woman, this is going to happen to you. And so how you exonerated from any of your choices that you make?
Oh, that's easy.
That's the question the man asked.
Go ahead, since you want to know, I can tell you. You want to know?
Yeah, we want to know.
I'll tell you why.
We want to know. We want to know.
Because when we're talking about, and remember, I told you as men, we're privileged. And so this is what I need you to do. I need you to empathize with your male privilege like you want white people to empathize with their white privilege first. That's what I need you to do. I need you to come to grips with that first and understand your male privilege first. And then you will understand the dynamics that comes along with your privilege. And so a woman will have, and most women have children for different reasons. They may just lack an intellectual capacity that they wanted that child to particularly have, and may have just used you for that particular reason. Right. They may have wanted their kid to have a particular hair texture and may have used you for that particular reason. You understand? And there's so many factors that come in this sexist ass society that we live in that we don't want to pay homage to as men with male privilege. We're so concerned about ourselves and our small problems because there's nothing but small problems at the end of the day if all you have to do is pay a few dollars in child support and that's your only sacrifice. We got to get off of that. And be ready to
Women can make a decision to have a baby with me because she like my hair. She can make a decision.
You'll be surprised. And again, it's a sexism that goes again. I said, empathize with her sexism, dealing with sexism, like you got to deal with your racism. And until you do that, you will never be a just man.
Yeah, but I don't listen.
Hold on, y'all. Before we go, I have a health PSA. Lightburn, you gotta calm down. I see that ball back to the regular schedule program.
But I'm gonna say this because the reasons you're giving Lightborn are not a justification of exoneration. Now, if you tell me that she was duped because the guy was a smooth talker, he came in too smooth and hid certain things out of his life that she later uncovered, I could swallow that and I could empathize with that. But if you're telling me it's because of physical characteristics that she had this kid, so now I have to be a part of that. It's her lack of it. Because first, with those examples, for me, you have to say, well, she had no real care for the child that she wanted to have. Because if she's choosing a father based on his looks and not his characteristics and not his ability to be there as a man, then she already flawed the system up.
You're okay. Right now, I'm gonna be honest with you, you're being very superficial in nature, and let me tell you why. Because again, I told you to empathize with sexism like you would with racism. And you just can't. And the truth of the matter is you can't. That's the problem. And until you can really connect and empathize with sexism like you do with racism, you're going to continue to function in your male privilege, just like white people function in their white privilege. And again, I just told you because of sexism. So that means that the time she set foot in school and realized, or somebody told her that she wasn't attractive enough. You understand? And all those things that she had been deprived of as a child and a girl growing up. And she just simply, you ready for this? She just wants to belong. So here is a guy that just don't want to be with me, but I still want to keep some part of him to make me just feel affirmed. But you can't see that because you don't suffer from sexism. You understand? So I have to really go deep and empathize with the trauma that women really face, not only in this country, but in this world, to really get to a just conclusion.
But I do empathize with that because I told you.
What about those same boys? Hold on, Gene. What about those same boys who are raised in those same homes by moms who tell them they don't need a man, right? They say they don't need no man because I raise a kid on my own. And then this boy is that learned behavior. That's why he's not doing anything for that shit. Because he got the same. Listen, somebody's trauma. The trauma is not higher than another person's trauma. I know that we would like to say that, but it's not because there's some people out here who have no trauma at all. They have choices that they make. It's a difference between trauma and choices. If you make a choice to do something, it's different. It's different from being put in a social economical disadvantage situation and having the process. Let's take the LGBT community. Let's take trans and gay boys. Yes. To survive. They have sex on the street because they have no choice about getting jobs, not getting jobs, and not getting anything. They have to have sex on the streets. They do it constantly. I'm asking, am I going to be empathizing with them? Do I empathize with them because they have to have sex on the street, or could they go to a job and get a job?
I think when it comes to sexuality, of course, we all have our opinions on how we were taught and how we were brought up. But when you make a choice to go on the street and or sell or to survive, that is a choice. That's not necessarily trauma. That's a choice that someone makes to get by. But everyone has the ability to go and work. In a regular job may not be the best job, but everyone has that ability. Again, I think that's a choice, Ron. That's what's my thought.
Listen, again, I mean, Black people was up in arms when, and this is what I love about this, because now here goes where this thing goes full circle for me. Kanye West says slavery was a choice, in which, in what you guys, back to your point, he's 100% right. And I agree with him. He is right. It was a painful choice, but a choice nevertheless. You got to understand that every choice is not a luxury. You understand? And if you understand your choice, and this is the difference between trauma and all that other stuff we're talking about. You got choices that comes out of necessity, and there's choices that comes out of luxuries. And right now we're speaking from the luxury choice. You understand? Because we can sit here and say this, oh, they have a choice. I'm like, because we're comfortable. And we're speaking from a very comfortable place. But until you put yourself and have to make that choice out of necessity, like them women, like the LGBT community, where they just don't fit or belong, or society will not accept them, you understand? Then yes, it becomes a necessary choices. And as a Black man, I can empathize with that choice because there's certain things and certain choices that I can't get. You understand? And have the luxury to get as a Black man. It would take more for me to get than it would for a white man to get. So I can't sit here and say, oh, I'm like, no. We don't have that. We're not living in that luxury of choice being a minority. I don't care across the board whether it be sexually, racially, or whatever. To try to use that's a very weak argument.
Yes. Let me say this before you go, Dr. Jordan. One second. Because it all goes back to this. Protect yourself before you sleep with the person. Make the man put on a condom. Get on birth control. You can't sit in one breath say that they want to have this kid do the attributes and everything, and I should empathize. But then on the other hand, negate the fact that they made a conscious decision to act upon this without being on birth control, without having a guy, because that's what it all boils down to. If the guy dupes the woman tells her sweet things in her ears and gets it that way, I agree with you 100%, right? But it still goes back to sexual responsibility. And that's the bottom line. Because you can't then say, I'm gonna sleep with this guy unprotected. I just met you on the first date. And then boom, I get pregnant. And oh, well, you know what? It's okay. I'm gonna have an abortion because I really don't know you.
So let me ask you this, Gene.
Well, Jason had a question.
If I take my responsibility, if I be responsible and accountable and say, no, I'm not gonna sleep with you. She pregnant 2 weeks later. Not from me, but from somebody else. Where does that play in this whole point that we're playing? Listen, if that means that every man would have to say, hey, I'm going to be a responsible and accountable. I'm going to tell these women, no, I'm not having sex with them. I'm not doing anything with you. They will still, if they want to be pregnant, they will become pregnant by somebody else in another place in another way. So then here's the accountability. We completely said, no, we're not having sex with you at all. We're not doing any of that, but they still end up pregnant. They still do what they want to do because that's the decision that they made, to not use protection.
Yeah.
Or not to even question. I'm not saying they have to make somebody, but question somebody who decides to have sex with them. Hey, you got a condom? Because listen, I've been told that so many times that I just know that even if I go somewhere, I carry condoms. You just carry condoms just to carry them because you already know the last thing you want to happen is to get there and you can get it. But guess what? You're not getting
you ain't got
shit because you ain't got a condom. Because that also speaks to the caliber of woman that I would be talking to, and that also changes the dynamics of how I feel about her in that situation. Because I know that in my mind as a man, if she tells me that, I know she told other men that. She ain't just telling me that.
Yo, you ain't lying, dog. Because I remember one time I was in college, Shorty was ready to get on it. I said, and she ain't asked me about no condom, no nut. I said, hold up. Yo, I ain't got no condom, Shorty. She said, oh, we ain't need that. I said, hell no.
Well, you don't need that.
I said, hell no. So, Rod, I definitely get what you're saying, right?
He was looking
I'm just saying this.
He was like, I will be a lawyer one day.
responsible-
You ain't
Listen,
getting half.
I was a
people getting
responsible adult.
Right. I think that, and that's what it boils down to, because I think that the biggest part of this really, and we're talking about, daddy being a Rolling Stone, is both people being responsible adults to know the seriousness of bringing a child in this world. We talk about Roe versus Wade. Let's move Roe versus Wade out of here. And let's just talk about when you're getting into a relationship with somebody, you're talking to them. Sex should not be the first thing that you are focusing on. You should be focusing on your compatibility with this person, the things you like about this person, the things that make it that you have an intimacy with them. Because you can be intimate with somebody and have more dopamines go through your body than ejaculation. So we're looking at this whole animalistic idea that Rohan talking about, we just gotta be we gotta get a house. We don't have to have that. We're human beings. We have traits and morals and values that we can walk through. And we need to, and I say this to any young man, my brother, if it's too good to be true, it is. Carry your condom. I know everybody trying to have the magnums. Some of y'all don't carry the small condom. Small condoms fit tight, so magnums fall off, and then next thing you know, the condom inside. And then you say, oh, I don't know what happened. Carry your little tight condoms. Everybody got a super giant penis, and you don't, because if you play around with those condoms, you might end up in that situation. Get you a nice fitting condom so you can stay on and go through your motion, and then go to the bathroom and make sure you see your little.
Oh my gosh.
And do whatever you need to tie off the condom. Because that's the responsible. That's being responsible.
Ron,
that's being accountable.
Hold on, Jason wanted to say something.
I just had a question
Rod.
still, because I gotta roll back to one thing so I can rest easy tonight. Going back to the male privilege thing, and I just wanted to get some clarification on how barring certain circumstances, let me get that out the way first. Barring certain circumstances, rape, forceful things, incest, whatever it is, all those special circumstances, barring that, how does a man have a certain male privilege when, just as the same situations were spoken of, if this woman decides she's at her zenith career-wise, she's at the top of her game. Hey, I don't want to have this baby because I'm trying to be CEO, CFO, decides, no, I don't want it. Or if a man is begging this woman, please, and I'm not even talking about her because I've known this situation before. Please don't kill our child. Please don't kill our child. And she decides to do it. If the woman, decides she's gonna keep the baby, even though the guy, maybe doesn't want to, and she has the ability to be able to walk into a facility and do whatever it is that she decides to do, whether the guy, told her, hey, do this for me, or she decides, hey, I don't want to deal with the stress of you. I'm trying to figure out how it's a male privilege, because at the end of the day, she can either keep the child and, whatever situation y'all two have to go through for the next 18 years, or she decides to terminate the child and there's nothing as a man that you can do about it. How am I privileged? How is there male privilege in that?
All right.
I'm gonna tell you why. You privileged because you have the ability to, as I just said, say no. You don't gotta do it. And if you married to her and she realizes that she don't want to have kids, it's called a thing called divorce. And then you can marry a woman, because there's some women out here who waiting to be a mother and have a good father. So this idea of saying that something can't be done, your privilege is that you have the ability to change it. You can change it. You can say, all right, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to have sex. And since you don't want to have a child, listen, we're getting a divorce because I didn't sign up for not having children. And I'm going to find me a woman who wants to have children, who wants to be a mother, who wants to have that kind of family that I want to have. That's simple, but that's the privilege that we have, because anything else becomes us being a supremacy of bullying and other things, as my boy gonna say.
I took it as the privilege was us being able to, as a man, just the average man, being able to walk away, right, and not taking responsibility. Walking away from the woman and the child, and not take any true responsibility of support, unless they put us on child support. But being able to say, you know what, I don't want to raise this kid. I'm just gonna go do my thing and move on to the next person, while you sit there and you're stuck with this child, raising this child for the next how many years. And if you get me on child support, cool, they'll garnish my paycheck, but that's about it. You're still not going to get anything else from me. And I think that's the look that
Privilege.
That's what I took from it when they said privilege.
Okay.
Well, Lightburn is here, so let him explain.
That's what
Robert was spot on. Actually, he's spot on, because, and Dr. Doom was spot on. He had the answer. He explained the answer, but he just didn't see the answer he explained. What he explained, he said that woman said she don't want to have a child because she want to become the next CEO of this of the company or whatever. The question is, what stops that man from becoming a CEO? Nothing. You understand? Simply, if he just don't want it. You can't get him pregnant to alter his professional destiny. You understand? But a woman getting pregnant alters her professional destiny, regardless the guy is worth it or not. And back to what Robert said, spot on. I mean, I could just try to echo what he said. You're right. I mean, we're privileged on so many fronts, and that's not just in this country, that's worldwide. That's why when you see, even in our own heritage, African heritage, you don't see women having multiple husbands. You see husbands having multiple wives. And so that privilege is far and widespread. And so, I mean, sometimes I have to take a real, being married is what made me empathize with women more so, and having daughters, but more than having daughters, being married. My wife had to really give me a deep insight on the traumas that women go through. I'm like, I guess I would have never really saw that. I couldn't understand that without her. You understand? So I talk from a level of experience and sacrifice, watching her sacrifice, because I see her getting ready to sacrifice for even me. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Don't even do it for me. You understand? Because you are still worth more. You understand? And so it's trying to get our women to where they deserve to be. We can't do that just trying, and I want to say it, trying to be equal to them. You understand? We really supposed to be more than them, so we can be more to them. And the only way to be more than them is to be more to them. That's all I'm saying. So when I come at this, I come at it.
I'm going to answer Dr. Doom's answer also, because nothing's stopping a woman from becoming a CEO, not even getting pregnant, because you have a lot of women CEOs till this day who have families. Now, what happens is, I'm gonna tell you, I hear you, Gaspar, but I'm gonna tell you, it goes to what Lightborn was saying, right? If you have a man who's gonna support you, you can become anything you want as a woman. If you have a man who's willing to be there and sacrifice just as much as you'll sacrifice for him, there's no stopping, right? But it's all about getting the right person on the other end of that. It's not taking any man, it's taking the right man. And that's what it's about, taking the right man, and as a man, finding the right woman. Because if you want someone who's going to help you propel, don't just pick up anybody, interview them. And that's just me. And how do you interview? You date. You don't sleep with them, you date them. You talk to them. You find out where they're from. You find out where they plan on going. Because for anyone who doesn't have a plan, they're just planning to fail, right? So if I know that I want a woman who is educated, right? I'm going to look for a woman who wants to continue to be educated, because education doesn't stop because you graduate high school. Education doesn't stop because you graduate college. Education is eternal. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to look for someone with that attribute who wants to continue to learn as I want to continue to learn, because I know that's how I'm going to progress. So it's a matter about being picky. And that's, and in my opinion, that's how you stop men from becoming Rolling Stone as a woman, by being more picky in the man you choose to allow inside that house. Because now, as far as that goes, now as the man, it's a different story. It's all in your mindset and your mind frame. And like Lightborn likes to say, it's about the reprogramming of yourself and reconditioning of yourself in order to understand your importance within the home as a man and as a father and as a husband, in order for you to be able to lead the household correctly. Anything else, you're falling short.
I hear you on that. That's some wisdom from my brother.
As far as saying, the woman, the successful woman has the right man and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I look at the examples of, like, look what just happened with Will Smith. Look at what happened with Johnny Depp. So you got some toxic ass women on the backhand side of that as well. That's why I'm saying, it's hard for me to swallow this whole, the man is the leading force of what's happening with that woman. I mean, there's a lot of successful women that does not need that man to bolster her career. So it's hard for me to swallow that whole argument. Here's
the thing. You use Johnny Depp, right? You use Johnny Depp. Let's go with Johnny Depp.
Right.
He got with the wrong woman.
Right.
Because the right woman wouldn't be taking him to court.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
The right woman would be taking him to court after she put his thing off.
Listen, but
after what?
No, the right woman would not be taking him to court. And it's just that simple.
Why? She the one who did something to him, and she taking him to court. That sounds about
exactly.
Right. That's what all the time. Listen, and that's
what I'm saying.
We hearing about Johnny Depp, and here's what my point I'm making, and I think Dr. Doom is thanks for bringing that up. The only reason we even hearing about it is because she is so fucking bat crazy that she's taking him to court for what she did to him. So you tell me she doing that. On the average, a man does not even say or do anything. He accepts whatever he accepts. Go in silent, and if he can't take it, a lot of times he take himself out of this equation. And sometimes it's not from a Rolling Stone, he becomes a stone.
But you're just saying what I'm saying. He's not with the right woman, because the right woman would have never done that to him.
Okay,
and that's
wait a minute.
You see what I'm saying?
Sorry. I'm gonna go here. I go. Got to take the woman's side again. Let me again. Here goes some other things you guys just don't understand because you just don't look at the facts. So let's just look at the facts.
Let's look at the facts.
I'm gonna tell you why this dropped squarely on Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is 23 years older than this woman. That's number one.
Number one.
Number two,
They have absolutely nothing in common but his celebrity and his money. That's number two. Johnny Depp right now is just an expensive trick that's in court. Stop trying to make him out of a husband and being a victim of what he really deserves. He earned what he's a victim of, like most of us. Anytime you decide you want to
with that light bulb.
be
careful.
Let me
Be careful
finish.
with that light bulb.
Be careful with that.
That's victim blaming. That's victim blaming.
He earned what he deserved. It's well calculated and well deserved. You weep with your soul. So
wait. But Lightborn.
Let me finish.
I would not agree with that because that's victim blaming. The second somebody said that a woman deserved to be smacked around because of what she did, it is not correct.
That's not my situation. That's not this.
No, it's not. It's the same situation.
Hold on, Ron. Let him finish. Let me
finish explaining it. So again, this man who's old enough to be her father, you understand, and totally just want to go ahead and run that red light. See, we don't want to talk about them other red lights that we love to run. And see, so you want what they call it, luxuries, and not seeing the liability that comes along with the luxuries that you chose. Since we talk about choices and responsibilities. This man don't have nothing in common with this woman, and this man just assumed that he's celebrity enough that this woman will see him as her equal when it comes to generation-wise, when we know that's not true, because when we were young and we were dating girls, they used to call a dude 5 to 10 years older than them, that you still with that old man. He gonna give you the worms and stuff like that. So why is this any different? Why are we seeing this different? We trying to make them equal when they are clearly not. And so we're right here talking about, oh, poor Johnny Depp. I'm like, Johnny Depp made that deal when he made it. And he's suffering the consequences from it. And that's simply it. So I'm not going to sit around here and try to make him equally yoked with a situation that he really wasn't equally yoked in.
I get where you're coming from, Lightborn, but I also get where Ron is coming from, in that the situation that Johnny Depp is in isn't because, and we're talking about the specific thing, not the overall thing, which is where you're coming from. But the specific thing and why he's there, where Ron is coming from, at the end of the day, he's the victim here, not necessarily her. But I do agree with you. Generationally, there was no connection. And ultimately, he created that because he was the older one who ultimately did not and should not have possibly placed himself in that relationship with her. Coming back to the lovely Dr. Doom, who's enjoying his salad at 8:20, and I would love to be enjoying my salad as well.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes. We need to close out. Go ahead and close, because right now, you guys just open up Armageddon on men to be abused, and it's okay, and it's their fault to be abused.
And that's where I saw Ron coming from, right. And he also needed to hear the health PSA regarding his blood pressure, because I saw that popping out where he was screaming into the screen as well. Listen. At the end of the day, gentlemen, and I love this topic clearly, and then when we threw it in Roe versus Wade, that just made another light go off. I think today was in reference to the Papa was a Rolling Stone. We fully understand that, and one thing that Lightburn brought to me was about this male privilege that we tend to look for, that we overlook when we as men are in the position that women are in. I agree with him. I didn't look at it that way, to think about her choices and her, because despite the fact that Robert believes that a woman, despite her pregnancy, could still be CEO, I'm not disagreeing with you, but that role is a much more difficult role once she becomes pregnant, because the people who vote to make her CEO, who are mostly men, then say, is she going to be available for the company? Is she going to be able to work late nights? Is she going to be able to sacrifice? So they make the decision there. And I'm not saying it's not feasible. I'm just saying that's what makes it a little harder. Coming back to her as a woman having ultimately the choice and having responsibility in making the decision, of course, because at the end of the day, she's the one that's her body. She didn't have to lay down with you. She could have, as you just said, the good word tells us you will know the fruit by the tree by the fruit that it bears. So ain't nothing coming overnight. So if you take your time and get to interview somebody and know who they are, like Ron and everybody else say, you know who you laying down with, you know who you choosing to be there with. So you got to deal now with the consequences of that. So again, the Papa was a Rolling Stone thing. yeah, historically, we've always focused on the man leaving the house because we do have that privilege as men to be able to say, hey, we don't want to be there no more. Or as Robert gave another suggestion, we were working and traveling to work back then. So we had families here and families there. Men who are truckers, who are cross-country truckers, they roll in stone regularly because they are constantly on the road and gone. So we all know the negative connotation that comes with it, but we also have to understand, I think we do understand some of the realities or reasons behind the behavior that may have led to them being rolling stones. And or the other reason, as Ron so eloquently put, he ain't trying to be with her crazy behind, and she lied to him, and now he ain't trying to be there no more. So he gonna be rolling all out of there. So again, there's various reasons that men are rolling stone. We just gotta, at the end of the day, realize that as long as we understand that there are different dynamics for different people, and why they choose to not be present. But the one thing I think we forgot more than anything, and we didn't get a chance to really delve into, is that the effects of that unavailable father. And when he's not present, how that impacts the children that don't see him. Whether he's the father of that's in a second relationship and he's not there for the kid because he has his main wife at home, and his inability to be there for the children that he's created from the other relationship and how that impacts them. And historically, how it continues to create, unfortunately, that cycle of neglect and other issues that come along with it. So listen, this was a great topic. Like I said, it's 8:25, man. Great topic.
Wait, one thing. Let me say one thing, because Gaspar was getting into something I was going to comment on, because I want to change that male privilege and call it male ignorance, because the privilege is actually being the father. It's a male ignorance to walk away. It's ignorance on your part, right? And to be the father, to have an impact, to see what your legacy will become, right? By you investing in those children, by you investing in your time, your efforts, even your money at times, at most of the time. It's the sacrifice that you have to make, and that is the privilege. Because after you see them flourish and become better than you, you know your job has been done. And the privilege is being able to watch them become their own person and start a next generation that's going to be even better than them.
I have to, a real quick one, I have to add to that. But when I went to mediation during my divorce, the lady said to me, you need your salaries, you don't have nothing. You don't have anything. You don't have what she said, IRA, 401k. She gave a list of those privileged people. Yeah. And I said to her, we are not here to discuss that. We are here to discuss the child. And I took out the picture of my daughter and showed her, I said, this is why we're here. So I'm going to warn those fathers out there. Being a father, you're gonna have those hurdles. They're gonna test your pride, your ego, your pride. It's a sacrifice. And my daughter's here with me. She left her mom's home. She's here with me. And I believe I got that privilege by putting in the work, teaching her right from wrong and how to see, how to grow. And the child will make that decision.
Ultimately.
So don't give up. As a father, you advocate. And sometimes I have a CDLA license. I can go drive a truck and make $80,000 a year. But I'm here with my daughter making $30,000 a year. It is a sacrifice, but you do what you got to do. If she grows up and go on her own, at least she comes out of the nest and I did my part. That's food for thought for all fathers who think that get involved with the drama and the back and forth with the mother. You have a child, you make every effort for your child.
Amen.
All right.
Good word.
So in a quick summary and wrap up, again, folks, this is the kind of conversation we have every Tuesday night, and it's gonna filter into tomorrow on Wednesday. So if you want to, fathers, if you want to come on, look down in the comment section and come on and join us tomorrow night, because you know this is going to continue. But to summarize this, and just so you know, listen, I'm always gonna push back on things. I'm gonna be an advocate for fathers, but the reality of this is really about social construction. And the idea of fathers being a rolling stone is a social construction. A social construction back into the idea of privilege that a father can still be a father and not be there. You'll never find a mother who can be a mother and not be with their children. They'll lose their rights as a woman. Whereas men can have as many kids and run around the country and do whatever they want and still be seen as the father who is out somewhere, mystical father, all of those things. And the society and the social construction that we have made will make it okay. And so I understand. Listen, I know it seems like sometimes, listen, I know folks say, well, these guys, no, because we know when we end, we know what the bigger picture is. We're going to argue the topics, we're going to say what we feel. But in the end of this, and I think that everyone will agree what I just said, is that the idea of a rolling stone is about the privilege that dad has not to be affected by not being a father. He's not affected. Mother will be scorned and looked at as the worst woman in the world if she does not take responsibility and take care of her children. And that's the imbalance, and that's the privilege that men do have. In many instances when we look at this overall. So again, I want to thank people for joining us tonight. Again, people who are going to watch this replay, please watch it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little button at the top so you'll know when we're going to have it. So hit the bell so you can be notified. We are going to, tomorrow, we're going to go over what the next group of, I got a nice big long list topics for the next couple of weeks. So we're going to go through those and then we're going to be putting those out. Thanks everybody who joined us tonight. Thanks all the fathers for being very transparent, open, coming to a place that's safe. Yes. And listen, Lightborn and Osborne can get loud. That don't mean we angry, we passionate. So just so you know, Johnny Gaspar, we not about to have a coronary. We're just very passionate about what we believe in. And if you don't know, because we're not mad, we're just passionate. And we're passionate because we believe we want better for our Black families. We want better for our men. We want better for our mothers. We want better for our children. And if we don't be passionate, who gonna care if we just say, passion is what we need, because passion get the job done. So again.
And if you want to hear about that more, go back to one of our replays, Why So Angry Black Men, where we explain it all to you.
There we go. Yeah, go back and watch it. Exactly. That's Robin said it right. If you want to get some better understanding, go back and watch some other videos. And we'll see you again next week. And fathers, if you are watching this, mothers, if you got a father sitting there watching and you watch this, tell them to come on, log on to Zoom tomorrow and get some of this love that we're gonna give them tomorrow as fathers. Hey, Fatherhood Talk.
Chant us out. Chant us out. Chant us out.
Oh, don't forget. I'm going to get me a salad too. Boy, he made me want one.
All right, let's do the chant.
I forgot this one, man.
All right, I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
I don't know what happened. I said that I am.
I am.
That you are.
You are.
That we are.
We are.
Championship
fathers.
Peace.
And
All right, my brothers.
See you next week.
All right, my brother.
Good night, man.